Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I always say in the beginning of my videos that you guys should draw along, and today I figured I'd give you a little bit of insight into how you might accomplish that. So today I'm just going to show you really quickly how I sort of start drawing a face, and explain some tips and tricks along the way to demystify the drawing process. So first and foremost, you need to understand that people use references, and having one good reference is great, but some people have numerous references up to complete an image or draw the weird things that they're attaching to their drawings, and there's no shame in that. Even Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci used references as just sort of part of the process of progressing as an artist, and maybe by the time you've drawn a bunch of portraits you can do one without a reference, but there's no shame in using them. In fact, you should. So I also wanted to talk about some of my tools. Obviously, since I'm drawing on black paper, I have a white charcoal pencil from General's. I have a couple blending stumps. One is exclusively to blend the white. The other is a stump that's used on black charcoal mostly, and I use that to kind of draw in shapes. I then have a pen eraser, which is really helpful. You can take a razor blade and shave it to draw in sharper shapes. I just use it a lot to erase small areas. And then I have a kneaded eraser, which is kind of like a piece of clay, which you can use to lift and pull, your pencil off. And then I have a brush, which is really nice for blending. So those are the basics to get you started, and I also have my black pencil. So when I'm starting a drawing, first and foremost, is I look at the reference and then I see which way their head's kind of tilted. And so I'm just going to do a more traditional straight up and down one here. And so this line that I've drawn is kind of the center line of the face, and it represents sort of the top, the forehead here, and the chin. And about a third of the way down this, I'm going to do a line here, which will represent either my eyebrow line or my eye line. Sometimes I have to wait to see what it feels like it should be. I'm going to keep all these kind of on the same plane because we want to keep it in perspective. So then kind of another third of the way down, I'll do like a nose line. And then splitting this difference between the nose and the chin, I'll do kind of middle of the lips. And so there's no right place to start a drawing, but I always think the eyebrow to nose is a really good place. It just sort of helps me. And so I'll just draw my nose out to the edge there. You can put a circle at the end of your line here, and then I just draw it straight back for now. And then from here, bottom of the nose, we'd have a lip curl out, and we'd see my bottom line down here ended up being more of the bottom of my lip, which is fine. Another little curl. You can do another circle down here. And this is where you also need, when you're drawing a human, there are some things to take into consideration based on gender, things like that. For example, guys in general have a more robust bony structure to their skull. So that means if you're doing a guy, their eyebrow ridge might be much more pronounced. Their nose, like if this is their skull here, their nose ridge might even have like a little bit of a bump here, because this is sort of your nose and skull form here, like something like that. And the chin on a guy is more pronounced. But for now, we'll just kind of do something generic. Do that. And then we'll just bring the jawline back. And you can kind of just carry that off the page for now. And then you'll carry your head up. And we'll make a rough circle. Again, based on gender. So like if I'm going to draw a girl here, I'll make this much smaller. Girls also have their soft tissue tends to be the thing that's a little more pronounced in general. Their noses will stay more upright and upturned. Their lips are typically fuller. And this is just too big of lips down here. It's just... And you're going to find that as you go along, you'll be refining. But that's really not what we're concerned with. And their eyes are wider. So a good way to draw eyes, so you carry your nose in and you'd have like the wing of your nose somewhere over here. And on the same level that the head is tilted at here, you just kind of, this will be, I always inset it beneath sort of the bony structure. You would have your eye. And a good way to, a way that I've been drawing eyes lately to help is I draw a circle beneath the brow ridge, because our bottom of the eye doesn't have much, it doesn't have much tissue there covering it. Our bottom eyelid's kind of small. The top one is really what does it. So if you take it, your eyelid, and draw it to shape this circle, and you do the same for the bottom, and you realize that at the corners of the circle, it's going to bend. It's wrapping around it. And that sort of gives you some help. And then so then at the edge of the eye here, we have sort of a zygomatic structure over here. And another helpful tip for the edge of the eye is just drawing this little connecting loop here from the edge of the eyebrow, or from the edge of the eyelid up to the eyebrow, because this area right here, it's going to catch light. So if we make our light source over here, that's the eyelid, and I think from our angle here, we're going to have, you probably won't be able to see that. This is not a terribly great drawing. Make no mistake. And another difference between males and females for the jaw, aside from a male having a more pronounced chin, is a female has this slight curve up at the edge, whereas a male has a more square, kind of straight up jaw. So if we're drawing a female, we'd do the slight curve. Our eyelid would also follow this eye shape. And again on the bottom, we go to the edge where the circle was. Do that. So you can start getting rid of some construction lines here. Girls still do have a brow, so it's important to still include that. Female also has a thinner neck structure. Alright, so picking up again, start at the lips. We do, from this 3/4 view, we do a slight Cupid's bow there, and we're just going to kind of give a gentle curve following our vanishing point we had there until it attaches. Bottom lip, do the same. Again, a kind of rolling curve. Alright, so we're 10 minutes into this drawing now. I want to see how quick I could go. We have a smile line, the other fold there. Alright, so with the light source coming from over here, sun, you're just going to have the light hit what you would believe would be the bony structure. So we know that on the top of our nose here, we have a big one. And then at the edge of the nose here, the soft tissue area, we'll have a highlight, and it'll also catch on the top of the fold there. We'd also have light catch on the side of the face that it is coming from here on the edge. Then we need to think about the cheekbone structure, which females in general have more defined cheekbones. So this is sort of our skull shape here. Something like that. With this being an orbital socket, because we know that skulls have that big shape here. So this is all very fleshy. So for cheekbones, I like to think of them pretty much as a cylinder. You know, you got this reduced cylinder. Now, a light coming from this way hitting a cylinder would hit kind of in the upper middle here, just above, we'll say, the 50% mark of it. And then you get a little on the bottom side and a little on the top side. And when you blend that properly, it should start to look like a cheek rolling in. So I'm using my white stump here, which is nice because it has white charcoal built up on it. Again, bony structures, you'll catch on the brow ridge here. Same with this one. Catch on the brow ridge and follow that. And then it'll follow this arch here. It's at the edge of our foreheads. And again, this is kind of a big cylinder, as the middle of the forehead is right here. So you're just going to kind of shade that as if it were a big cylinder. And I'm going super fast, so nothing's going to be very, very pretty. Now, you need to also think about your shadow shapes. So right next to a good way to add a dynamic, or make a photo dynamic or drawing dynamic, is to add dark right next to areas that have lots of light. So this is our nostril here. But you would draw, again, the sunlight's going to, so the nose is going to, tip of the nose is going to come out, and it's going to project onto the face. And the height of the nose here is also going to do that. Now the brow is going to be another one. And it always kind of creates a weird triangular shape in there. Something that should be said when picking your references is to pick them well. Today, the way photos are taken, a lot of times there's an abundance of light. We like kind of a washed out, dreamy look. But that is not very good for portrait drawing. What you want is a contrasty photo with a single light source that light projects onto, so that it sits on those bony formations we talked about, and you can help you define the gender of the face and the structures and exactly what that person brings to the table with their features. You know, in the beginning when I was drawing, I would always pick like photos that I saw, and photos these days are the ones I was just talking about, where they don't really have a strong light source, or they don't really have a single light source. They have numerous light sources that just sort of make it confusing to look at a person. Couple that with makeup and other things like that change the person's structure, and you end up with a really difficult task of trying to capture someone. So picking a good reference is the first step to picking a good, or making a good drawing. And it's not really, I don't think, talked about all that much, of just how hard it is. So if I were you in the beginning drawing, I would pick I would pick something that has a single light source from one side in 3/4 view, sort of like this. And I would then take the photo into like an editing program, which you just have standard on your computer or your phone, and take out the saturation and then up the contrast so that your whites are whiter and your darks are darker. And then you have something that you can start to see and understand for forms and shapes. Because in the beginning, you're not going to be doing things where you just draw from pure imagination. It's not at all how it works. You need to first build up some skills to understand sort of familiar shapes that you'll see. And you will notice that over time, you do start to see familiar shapes on drawings. And you know, even this, I don't really have a reference. I'm certain it doesn't look good, but these are all just familiar shapes that I would expect to see in a portrait. The shapes that I have seen, this sort of triangular shape for the cheekbone. Again, I'm just building up contrast real quick here to help try and bring this thing to life. Light always rests really positively on the edges of the lips, so that's, and then it would kind of taper out towards the fold line. It also tends to come up here. Another thing I want to talk about is using other pieces of technology to help you. So like, if I'm going to draw something that has more of a dynamic posture, like say what a comic book artist might do, there's this program I use, which is free. It's called Design Doll, and it just gives you a 3D model of a form, a human, and you make it male, female. And then you can even change each body part to certain sizes. But it allows you to manipulate them at each joint, change their posture around to virtually what you want. It has some funky things that don't always end up working out, but for the most part, it, I don't know, it can help you. If you, again, you should have numerous references up when you're doing this stuff. So if you get that up and then you look at, you know, bodybuilders or people who are into fitness are a good place to start for figuring out how someone's muscles might look. So again, having numerous reference images up can really help. And as far as drawing like weird stuff, you know, once you start having a better understanding of shapes, you know, like let's say I'm gonna draw a spike here, kind of coming out of the middle of the forehead. You know, we think about our light source here, and in general, we can just kind of go with a cylinder shape, even though it's a triangle. A triangle is really just kind of a tapered cylinder. And then you'd add a cast shadow to that, and you'll see it brings it sort of right to life. And our shadow would follow the shape of the head here, so it's going to kind of this is again where the brush comes in really handy, because you can start softly blending some of these. And again, this isn't a good drawing. This is now at about 20 minutes, I think. And I didn't set off with any real intentions with this, so this is just to instruct. And in general, when you're drawing, you know, people would say to draw left to right and high to low, so you'd go, you know, work like you're reading a book, because your hand will smudge all this, and it does. It gets annoying. Like this area might not take tone as well because I'm sweating or my hands are greasy or whatever, and so there's oils on the page. I kind of bounce around because I will get bored if not. And, you know, if you're just practicing drawing, I don't think you have to worry about adhering to every sort of strict rule. The goal is to be fun. So I think bouncing around helps me. It allows me to see the image. So like if I hit an eyebrow up here and then I come down and hit the edge of the jaw, then I kind of have the face anchored in, and I can sort of know, you know, how things are looking. Like this is underneath the widest part of the chin, so it's going to be darkest down here, straight underneath it. And that'll give you the cheek structure. You know, I've been kind of watercoloring more recently, as I want to. So I used to take these in to like Photoshop and then digitally paint them, and I just don't. I like seeing them come to life with color, but I don't necessarily super enjoy the process. And watercolor gives me the chance to kind of illustrate my drawings. So I haven't been drawing that much when I should be. Like, I should have made a video today drawing a certain character, but I just didn't. I thought I'd share with you guys how I approach drawing, and because I think a lot of people who are deep into their art journey almost forget the basics, as in forget what it's like to know nothing. And since I'm still not super far in, I feel like I still have a grasp of the basics, or like the questions that used to eat me up, like not even understanding how to start with drawing a circle. And so like, for example, a really basic one that I don't think gets said all that much is like a circle. If you're right-handed, I think it's easiest to go counterclockwise. If you're going this way, you're kind of fighting the natural motion of your shoulder. Like, our shoulder is meant to kind of rotate forwards and inwards, like throwing a baseball in a way. And so if you follow that natural rhythm, you can kind of make your shapes a little better. These aren't very good examples, but if you are fighting it the other way. Anyway, that's a simple one. So when you are practicing your basic shapes, you know, again, use your shoulder, your arm, hold the pencil lightly, and it kind of helps. Obviously, it helps to use the sharp part of it when you're doing a positive shape, but when you're shading, you should be using the dull stuff, because if you use like a hard line, those can be kind of hard to blend in. Like, there's always going to be a little bit of a trace of that. Now if I use the broad side of the pencil and just go really gradually, by the time I go to blend that, it shouldn't be really leaving any marks. And so you just want to know, it doesn't hurt to leave hard lines. That's kind of the whole point of drawing, is what they would call line weight. So like, I might leave a hard line right underneath this cheekbone and then not do a whole much else about it. For example, also, just as a simple point, when I'm doing a cheekbone, I kind of take the part that's widest and I'll kind of go roughly straight down, and then I'll angle it back up, and then I'll follow that shape. And if you shade it with the idea that this is closer to light, so if you shade it from this ultimate dark area lightly, you know, I think it'll help create that natural shape. I used to not show my work at all. I have like an Instagram account that I post stuff on occasionally, but since starting this channel, I decided to build a website, and you know, I don't know if anyone will ever buy anything off it or not, but I figured it was worth doing, and at least showing some of what I do, because if not, it just sits here. I mean, my walls, which you can't see, are just covered in like 100 drawings I've done, and there's plenty more sitting back there. So I hope you guys will check it out. It's called drawinglore.com, and it has a fair bit of stuff on it right now. I haven't listed everything. I have comic book characters and film and game characters, as well as some of my own creations. And so yeah, here's some drawings I'm working on right now, which I haven't really been finishing drawings lately. I like adding hands to things. It's sort of a common motif for me. This is kind of a Mad Max style Batman I need to finish up. I just need to do the neck and design some more of what I think the bat suit would look like here. And then this is just sort of a creation of my own invention where I want people to have these sort of bony growths that help protect the head. Watercolors lately that I've been trying to practice on. This is an original. I mean, they're all originals here, but this is kind of like a warrior lady with a scythe infused into the hand. This is another hand person, which sort of just out of black and white drawing. Another hand person. And this that same warrior lady with the scythe, but just done in a little more watercolor way. I forgot to do this, but this is the paper I use, a Strathmore Black Mixed Media. It's 400 series, which means that it's a pretty smooth surface. The mixed media means that it is a pretty thick, robust piece of paper, and they're 11 by 14 inches. But I think that's pretty much going to do it here, guys. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment recommending any characters that you'd like to see drawn. I appreciate everyone that has commented so far. It seems to be the thing that helps the algorithm the most. Hopefully next time now you'll be able to pick up a pencil and start drawing yourself. Just blast in a line, an angle you want the head to be at, and add your eyebrow, nose, lips, chin, and you can start getting to it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Peace.